Hey everybody, Curious Formula coming here live as we're going to do all week. This is Education Reform Week here on our channel, and we're talking about education and reform, and we're here in Boston at the, show you here, National Charter School Conference 2024. Yes, and you see the registration table and some of the other things that are around here. But as we are talking about education reform, what I've been really happy to see the amount of people of color that are here. For those who don't know or are kind of novices to this, charter schools are probably the leading, most well-known public school choice option that people know about. People know about magnet schools or another, community schools or another. But in terms of producing high quality, high performing school options for parents that are both popular with parents and with educators who leave the traditional system to create new innovative schools, charter schools are that model. And we're here in Boston as part of the annual National Charter Schools Conference. For those who know what charter schools actually are, they are alternative public schools, 100% public schools. It's a simple bargain that Bill Clinton talked about when he signed the federal charter schools program law. He signed it and made it law, and that is, it's called the grand bargain, right? So for less regulation, for less immediate oversight, for some freedom to do things differently and outside the box, a charter school, as a public school, must give good results, must honor its charter and provide high quality, high performing education in terms of test scores, in terms of college prep, and in terms of career readiness. Failure to do so will mean that you get the ultimate accountability, which is closure of your school due to not meeting your charter, not having met the educational and academic set aside the things that you promised that you would do. And so it can be closed for poor performance. And we feel that that's the most accountable way education can be accountable to people, and that is to be accountable for results. And if you can't show results, then your school can be closed. It's actually the most ultimate, it's actually the most demonstrative way to have accountability. And so there are approximately 3.7 million kids, close to 4 million kids across America in 46 states that attend charter schools, and 46 states in Puerto Rico, Guam, the District of Columbia, are other locations where there are charter schools as well. That's approximately 7,900 schools, close to 8,000 schools across America, and I mentioned in 46 states. Currently, in charter schools, 56% of charter school kids are 56% of charter schools are in urban areas, 26% are in suburban areas, and about 18% are in rural areas, which is probably one of the fastest growing areas because you have a lot of Native American populations that are supportive of charter schools. Now, contrary to what you may read and see and hear on a lot of venues about charter schools, particularly those that are anti-charter, they are wildly popular amongst African American and Latino communities, the base of the Democratic Party, no less. And so polls show 60 to 70, and in some cases 80% if you're talking about African Americans in the South, supporting charter schools and looking for more public school choice options like charter schools for their children. They are wildly popular and they're getting results. If you look at, again, against the national rhetoric that says, well, it's not much difference in terms of outcomes of charter schools versus traditional district schools. That may have been true at one time, but most recent data has shown that is not true. I'm talking about the Stanford University Credo report and the Harvard University report that came out in 2021. Credo report came out in 2023 that shows that not only are charter schools providing more options and more learning days than traditional district schools, they're holding the key in many instances to closing the achievement gap between black and white in education. And so, what you have though, historically, as the opposition to charter schools, because they are a very big challenge to the status quo in terms of public school delivery options, have been historically adult special interests, primarily teachers unions and others who are sort of married and wedded to a system that has existed in America for well over 150 years in terms of education. It's a network, it's a system, it is an institution, and all institutions and all systems have pre-existing relationships that involve lots of money and power and influence, and anything that upsets the status quo and provides an alternative to that is seen as a threat. And charter schools have been seen as such ever since they've been dreamed up by a former member and former leader of the teachers union movement as an alternative. And so as public education continues to, in many ways, spiral out of control in terms of being effective to meet the needs of more and more diverse populations and diverse needs, you're seeing a real pushback from institutions and systems against it going forward. Currently, there's only one line of federal funding for public charter schools and in the federal budget, that is the charter schools program, and that is currently appropriated, and authorized at $440 million per annum. That is a fund that is created solely to create new charter schools and support the replication and expansion of existing charter schools. It also provides some educational help in terms of facilities and national activities, which is money to invest in innovative ideas that come across in the charter sector. Most recently, we look at 2 years since COVID, and we've all talked about the loss of learning that has happened since COVID. We looked at enrollment numbers, and enrollment has shown that over the last 2 years, first 2 years out of COVID, traditional public schools lost 1.3 million students, but charter schools gained 250,000 students. That's a 7% increase in enrollment, and it's parents voting with their feet. And so as we come to this conference and talk about education reform and what needs to happen, there needs to be a real big pushback against forces, against establishment politics and political machines, and the relationships they have, quite frankly, with people who are vested in the status quo and the establishment, and in structures that are antiquated in a lot of ways, calcified, fossilized in a lot of ways, that are not providing what kids need. And the honest God truth is, every kid is different, and one shoe does not fit all. And the traditional district school model that locks you into going to schools based on your zip code, if it does not meet what you need, parents are now demanding that they have other options. And Republicans get it, and Democrats are starting to get it. What we have seen over the last few years that I've been involved in the ed reform movement is more and more Democrats starting to recognize and read the polls and starting to listen to their constituents who are voting with their feet, as I indicated earlier. The last thing I'll say is this, is that the charter school model allows for Black people in particular, and people of color in general, to embrace something called self-determination in education and providing those things that our community needs that systems have never really provided. I'm often reminded when I hear people defending traditional district schools model over a charter school model by saying that we need to get back to a time when kids were learning in school. I always equate that to the Donald Trump mantra of "Make America Great Again," because it begs the question of when was America ever great, or when was that magical, mystical, wonderful time that America was great. So it begs the question when we talk about the traditional school system of when was the magical, mystical time in public education that the masses of Black and brown people were properly educated and received what they needed going forward. The history of African Americans in America has always been a search, and indeed the building of alternative models within America to educate our kids by any means necessary. We've always had a self-determination spirit when it comes to education, as far back as slaves educating their kids and demanding the Freedmen Bureau start schools. You look at some of the other school models that started as well in terms of private schools. Some of them that still exist in the South, private schools that were boarding schools that South Carolina and places like Mississippi, where Black people started schools and educated their kids. You can look no further than Marva Collins in Chicago, who was a Chicago school teacher who got tired of the teachers union in Chicago and decided to start her own school and educate kids in her community because she saw there was a need, to Sister Clara Muhammad schools that the Nation of Islam started, to the Freedom School calls. African Americans in particular and other ethnic groups have always been about creating institutions and public and otherwise that would educate their kids in the way they needed to. And likewise in the charter school sector, I'm seeing lots of African American, Latino, Native American, Asian American charter school leaders of color who are creating high quality, high performing, innovative public school opportunities for our people and our kids. We're going to be highlighting them over the next couple of days and over the next week. Specifically, I'm going to have interviews coming through here so you can talk to people and hear their testimonies as to why they're of color and why they're in this business, and listen to them about their results and the things that they're trying to provide, the things they are providing for their kids, because you need to hear this and you need to hear it well. Let's wrap this up by saying really quickly that if we're talking about what the future of public education looks like, if we're talking about self-determination of our community, it looks like our institutions and our organizations within our respective communities being the ones who start public schools. And by that I mean the Divine Nine, shout out to the men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, my fraternity, but also the men of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. It looks like the Links and the Boulay starting charter schools. It looks like HBCUs starting charter schools, many of which are pushing to be charter school authorizers in their various states. And we'll talk a little bit tomorrow about why that makes sense, because we're talking about a community empowerment, not only educationally, but in terms of providing jobs, in terms of providing services, in terms of providing the kind of things that we need to make our community whole. So hope you're open to listening and learning. We're going to give you a lot more over the course of the next couple of days. Remember, stay curious and think. It ain't illegal yet.